for the rollout of the additional vaccines that have been acquired. The head of the expanded program on immunization at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Kwame Achianu, joins us on phone with some answers. A very good morning to you, Dr. Achianu. Congratulations on the acquisition of the additional vaccines. But before we zero in on the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine, how many kinds of vaccines do we have currently and which we are administering so far in Ghana?
Thank you very much, and good morning to you and your cherished viewers and listeners if I'm on TV.
Good morning, Dr. Achianu. Please go ahead.
Your voice is a bit distant, so I'm struggling to hear.
Dr. Achianu, is it better now? Is it better? Can you hear me?
Yes, better now.
Okay.
But essentially, I think you're asking of how many vaccines we have.
Yes, how many vaccines we are currently using in Ghana?
Yes, so the FDA actually has given approval or emergency use authorization for 5 vaccines. We started with AstraZeneca. Of course, if a vaccine is not given authorization, it cannot be used. So any vaccine that has been used in Ghana has passed emergency authorization. So AstraZeneca was the first. Then we had a few thousands of doses of Sputnik, which we used. And then lately we've been deploying some few thousands of doses of Johnson & Johnson. But additionally, Pfizer and Moderna have also passed emergency use authorization. Currently, as we speak, I would say that we are doing 2 different vaccines at the same time. So we're doing AstraZeneca, the second dose for those who receive their vaccines for between 10th and 29th March, when we started the first rollout. And then also a few doses of Johnson & Johnson, which we shared with the other regions, apart from the 2 major hotspots, which took almost 96% of the entire stock that we had. So currently we are doing 2, but one of them is on a very low key.
Okay, and I suppose that's Sputnik.
No, that's the Johnson & Johnson.
That's the Johnson & Johnson, which is what we are now.
We had only 21,000 doses.
Okay.
They came in 2 different components, slightly different vaccines. So once you gave the first component, you needed to reserve the second component for the same individual.
Okay.
For that, we are done. Quite a number of people turned up. I would say that the turn-up was more than 90% for the second dose. So our dropout is around, I would say, less than 10%. So
okay.
That is fine.
Dr. Achianu, very quickly, tell us, right before we get into this latest dose, those ones, since we've used, AstraZeneca, Sputnik, and now, Johnson & Johnson, have we faced any problems with the second doses for people, let's say those who took AstraZeneca, and then when we, face problems with procuring AstraZeneca or maybe Sputnik, have we at any point faced any shortages, any problems with administering second doses, which would require that some people might now have to start the process again?
No, you don't have to. First of all, you don't have to start afresh once you receive a vaccine. Technically speaking, a vaccine that requires more than 1 dose to complete a schedule, once you get the first dose, is known as the priming dose. It doesn't matter the interval. Once you get the second shot, it's fine. You don't have to start one and again and again. No, you don't start over. The body will always have memory that you have received a vaccine before, even if it takes 10 years. So that shouldn't be an issue.
All right.
The other side of it is whether we've had problems getting vaccines. Yes, I'm sure everybody is aware that the vaccine landscape has been quite difficult, but of late we are getting quite a number of, some few millions of doses, especially in the next couple of weeks. There are several doses in the pipeline. So of late it's easing, but previously it was quite difficult.
Right.
And high-level management and everybody has been involved in getting us to this one.
Well, fortune seems to be smiling on us. Tell us now about the plan for this additional 244,800 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccines, which we received only yesterday.
Yes, so our principle for deployment has always been look at the epidemiology. Of course, you'd also, for any pandemic or if you are in an emergency where you have an outbreak, you look at those who are most vulnerable. And that is why we came out with the population segmentation. And of course, you also think of equity. So there are three key principles that we are working with. The epidemiology, looking at geographic and population risks, and then also equity. So if you look, the data speaks for itself. Greater Accra and Ashanti continue to be the hotspots. In fact, for all the cases that we have, about 70% or even more are coming from these areas. And that is our focus. But of course, because you want to engender demand, you'd also want to give some allocations to other hotspots like Western region, Central, Eastern, Volta, Bono East.
Target of 20 million of Ghanaians.
Mandates, which we are going to pursue. With the increasing availability of vaccines and reasonably quantity in the pipeline, we are declaring December as the month for vaccination, or let's say vaccination for Christmas. So December is going to be declared as the month of vaccination, and it will be launched by the Honorable Minister on 30th of November 2021. That's Tuesday coming. This mandate, which I'm going to announce, will be applicable in January 2023 as specific groups and manners as soon as, and this mandate become effective as soon as the campaign is over. We have them in two sections. They are going to have proposed groups that will be covered under the mandate and the venues. We are looking at all the three arms of government. All health workers have been given the opportunity to vaccinate, and they stay in a very strategic position that either they can share among themselves or give to their patients. So that's why we prioritize that. And remember, we are talking about these are the people who have been prioritized at the beginning, even when we had very few vaccines. And so we expect that. All security personnel will be covered. They should be vaccinated. All staff and students in secondary and tertiary schools should be vaccinated. And so secondary schools are being given the opportunity. Started last week, Friday, from 27th, almost all regions are doing vaccination of Pfizer in schools. And so in January, you should be fully vaccinated before you come back to school. All workers in government institutions and parastatals, all commercial drivers and their mates are expected to be vaccinated at the end of that. That's where they're commanded to cover them. There are areas where the mandate to cover, that will be a venue. And this venue for now includes nightclubs, beaches, sports stadium, and restaurants for indoor dining. And these are areas that will mean that you need to be vaccinated before you can go into these venues, and that will be enforced.
He said proof of vaccination would also be needed for nightclubs, beaches, sports stadiums, and restaurants. As a current, so
now vaccination for Christmas. So December is going to be declared as the month of vaccination, and it will be launched by the Honorable Minister on 30th of November 2021. That's Tuesday coming. This mandate, which I'm going to announce, will be applicable in January 2023 as specific groups and manners as soon as, and this mandate become effective as soon as the campaign is over. We have them in two sections. They are going to have proposed groups that will be covered under the mandate and the venues. We are looking at all the three arms of government. All health workers have been given the opportunity to vaccinate, and they stay in a very strategic position that either they can share among themselves or give to their patients. So that's why we prioritize that. And remember, we are talking about these are the people who have been prioritized at the beginning, even when we had very few vaccines. And so we expect that. All security personnel will be covered. They should be vaccinated. All staff and students in secondary and tertiary schools should be vaccinated. And so secondary schools are being given the opportunity. Started last week, Friday, from 27th, almost all regions are doing vaccination of Pfizer in schools. And so in January, you should be fully vaccinated before you come back to school. All workers in government institutions and parastatals, all commercial drivers and their mates are expected to be vaccinated at the end of that. That's where they're commanded to cover them. There are areas where the mandate to cover, that will be a venue. And this venue for now includes nightclubs, beaches, sports stadium, and restaurants for indoor dining. And these are areas that will mean that you need to be vaccinated before you can go into these venues, and that will be enforced.
She said proof of vaccination would also be needed for nightclubs, beaches, sports stadiums, and restaurants. Only 21% of the targeted population have received the first dose, while 7% are fully vaccinated. Health Ministry data showed Ghana has to date recorded 131,083 coronavirus cases and 1,220 deaths. Kumabwaji said the Health Ministry
groups and monies as soon as, and this mandate become effective as soon as the campaign is over. We have them in two sections. They are going to have proposed groups that will be covered under the mandate and the venues. We are looking at all the three arms of government. All health workers have been given the opportunity to vaccinate, and they stay in a very strategic position that either they can share among them.
Okay, so it is 25 after 7. Good evening, and I hope you are well. Well, my name is KWADWO JANTUAH, and this is Decision Points on Love 99.5. Welcome. It's been great so far. Interesting outcomes from Parliament. Now, the 2022 budget approved, but with all the dramas that will come with it, I'm sure that tomorrow, Love in the Morning, with my brother David Akwete, will do justice to all the things that happen in Parliament. Today, a minority is speaking, and minority also rejects the approval, just like majority rejected the rejection of the budget on Friday. But right now, we are talking about COVID-19 and the new variant called Omicron. In case you are not aware, there is a new strain of the virus. A new strain of the virus that causes COVID-19. And that was named by the World Health Organization and classified as a variant of concern. It will be weeks until hard answers are available about things like reinfection potential, antibody resistance, and susceptibility to vaccines, whether this particular variant will overcome the vaccines that we are used to, or perhaps the vaccines that are used now can overcome the Omicron. Now, we would ask experts to tell us about the Omicron and why we should be concerned about that. Well, as we speak, in the United Kingdom, new measures responding to the concern surrounding the Omicron variant of coronavirus have come into force in the UK. And as at 4 a.m. today, members of the public needed to wear face masks or coverings in shop and when in public transport. Joining me right now is Dr. Amwensi, and of course he is a very big person in terms of how we can manage COVID-19. He's the leader, Global Health and Infectious Disease Research Group and Senior Lecturer, KWADWO. Thank you, sir, for joining us on Decision Point. We are grateful for your time. So, COVID-19, we thought that at least we were fighting it, and there comes a new variant, and they say this one could be dangerous, Omicron. So, what is it about this variant that we need to be scared of? It is very okay, sir.
This means is that if the virus spreads faster and if the virus spreads causes more severe disease, then you would not be as protected as you would like to think you are, even if you have been vaccinated. And so it's better to be safe than sorry, even though we do not have the information on whether it causes worse disease or spreads faster.
Doc, just a minute. If I could understand you earlier, the head of World Organization is telling us not to worry. Is that the communication?
No, that's not what I said. What I said is he said that we would have the full knowledge within 2 weeks to a month. The one who said there's no need to panic is actually Joe Biden, the U.S. president. Joe Biden is not a scientist, and He's a politician. He's a president. All right. So there is some wisdom in saying do not panic or don't be worried because you do not know, and that's fair enough. So you have to have a basis before you say, okay, I've got to be worried. So if you do not know, you do not have a basis to be worried. But the reason why this is making the rounds is we saw what happened with the Delta variant, especially in the Indian subcontinent, and even all the way here to Africa and Ghana specifically. What this means is that if variants of concern are anything to go with, they may end up spreading faster and causing worse disease. And so when you hear of a variant of concern, you quickly marshal your forces and put things in place to prevent it from spreading. And then if later you know more, and it's not a worse-off variant than the previous, then hooray. But if it's a worse-off variant, then at least you are prepared. So when we say, or when we say no cause for alarm right now, it is based on the absence of complete knowledge, but it doesn't take anything away from being prepared. It is better you marshal your troops on the border with all your arsenal, only for it to end up being a small attack, rather than to just marshal just a little bit and finally realize that you don't have enough to defend. So that's the approach that we need to take to this new variant. And let me explain a little bit further about how this actually works. You must have heard that this variant was first detected in South Africa and then in Botswana. Now it's spread to a couple of countries all over the world, including China, many parts of Europe. Every day we are getting reports that the Omicron has been detected in other parts of the world. Now, the reason why I would say we need to be slow in pointing any accusing finger, for that matter, South Africa, is these variants, we get to know them when we look for them, when we do what we call sequencing, which is to determine the very precise genetic makeup of the virus. And this variant was detected in South Africa because they have a very robust sequencing network. In fact, they have 7 major institutions in South Africa across the country which are constantly sequencing around the clock, looking at new variants and reporting these. In fact, South Africa is doing more sequencing than a good number of other European countries, for that matter. You may have heard also that the Omicron other variants have been detected in places like Nigeria and in other parts of Africa, but these were not variants of concern. Okay? So what happens is variants will emerge when a disease is actively spreading from place to place, and then the virus has a chance to mutate or become different as it moves from person to person. So when you have a population that is not heavily vaccinated, in South Africa they have about 25% or so vaccination rate. With populations that are not vaccinated, there is the chance for new variants to emerge. So it's not surprising at all. So if you think about it, that even in South Africa, where they have 25% of their population vaccinated, in Ghana, we are barely 4 or so percent, climbing up to 5%. What this means is that variants can emerge from anywhere. But if you're not looking for them, you will not find them. So the fact that someone has found it and pointed at it doesn't mean that there are no variants necessarily emerging here in Ghana. We just do not know. In fact, the Omicron has been found in Nigeria.
Hello, Doc. Well, too bad. We'll try to raise him back on the line, but let's speak to Kwame Sapona-Siedu. Is Kwame on the line? Okay, let's try to see. Okay, let's try to raise them back so we can speak to them. In case you are joining us, this is Decision Point, and we are trying to understand the new variant called Omicron, as being named by the World Health Organization. We want to understand it better because just as we're ending November, then we heard of this variant called Omicron, and scientists fear this emerging strain could be more transmissible and have a higher resistance to the vaccines that we already know. Remember, even with the vaccines, I have taken my shots, but in the United States of America, they have moved from the normal shot that we all took to another booster. and that one Joe Biden has taken his. So I'm even thinking whether we'll need another booster. But let's speak to Kwame Saponasidu. Of course, he's been very fantastic helping us understand COVID-19 since its inception till now. And he's been very, very consistent with giving us all the necessary information. He's a pharmacist by profession with 19 years of practice to his name, including lecturing in Ghana, United Kingdom. Kwame, thank you very much for joining us on Decision Point. So we are looking at Omicron. That's the new variant. So it does appear there's no headway to this virus, coming down.
Well, I was listening to my colleague, John Amosi, and if you say there is no, and that's not really correct. The point is, we need to put all these things into context. And the first thing I would say is, Omicron is here, but has it changed anything? No, it hasn't changed anything. Do we have any evidence that Omicron can penetrate a mask? No, we don't. Do we have any evidence that if you wash your hands with detergent, it wouldn't kill Omicron? No, we don't. Do we have any evidence that droplets that are formed in the air can travel beyond 2 meters? And therefore, if you social distance, you avoid potential for transmission? No, we don't. Do we have any evidence that vaccine would be less efficient? That's a no. So, basically, we have a new variant, but the strategy that has been effective for over 100 years. It was used in the Spanish flu, it was used in the Hong Kong flu, it was used in SARS, it was used in MERS. That saves human beings hasn't changed. And that is the first thing I would want everyone to be aware of. That yes, there is a new variant. Yes, it has shifted the goalpost, but hasn't changed the fundamentals of the strategy to fight this virus. And that is why I would disagree if you say it has knocked us back from a vaccination standpoint. But if you say that everything is lost, I would disagree.
That's interesting. We'll try to raise Dr. Moesi back on the line to help us understand his point well. But based on where you are, especially the United Kingdom, we know that today they began another routine insurance of masks being worn to avoid spread. How is UK taking this new variant? Because recently we've witnessed how they go to the studio, the stadia, enjoy, they shout, they do all sort of things. And I was asking, what is it about them that they are not even afraid of this deadly COVID-19? And then we have Omicron. Should we say the UK was not strategic?
You see, that it goes back to exactly what I said in my opening statement. And that's what I'm saying. I've not said anything different from what Dr. Amoesi said. At the point where, you see, you're dealing with a virus, and there's something called the reproductive number. The reproductive number determines what percentage of your population need to be vaccinated to ensure that you minimize the transmission. UK is a highly vaccinated population. I mean, close to over 80% of the population have had 2 doses of a vaccine, of a viable vaccine. Now, as of today, when I check the dashboard, 23% of the population have had at least 3 doses, which is what you are talking about as the booster. The booster didn't start today. In actual fact, it's been going on for weeks. It's just that it was in strategic population. I've had 3 doses.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But it was strategic. It has strict population, people working in patient-facing environments, people working in senior management and senior leadership who have to be dealing with people on a daily basis and other things. But with the Omicron, the strategy was changed. Why was the strategy changed? If you listen to what Dr. Moise was saying clearly, the transmissibility, that the ability of this virus to pass from person to person, has changed due to the mutations of the Omicron, which means the reproductive number has changed. When that changes, it means the percentage of your population you have to vaccinate to get close to herd immunity also changes. That is what has necessitated the UK saying that in that case, more of the population should have a third dose. But that is also flawed by why we have Omicron. We need to understand why we have Omicron. Where did Omicron come from? Omicron came from mutation of this SARS-CoV-2 virus in people who were partially immunized. What does that mean? They had had at least one dose of the virus, of the vaccine, but hadn't had a second dose, were immunocompromised, so probably have had 2 doses, but their immune system is weak for them to produce enough antibodies.
Interesting.
And therefore, the virus stayed in what we call a low-level antibody titer. It got used to the antibodies, and it started finding a way of avoiding them. That is why if you listen to all the conversations, the terminology immune.
Hello, Kwame. Too bad. Do we have Dr. Moise on the line? Hello, Doc. All right, so let's get Dr. Moise, then we'll raise Kwame also on the line. We want to understand basically what this Omicron is about, because from 2019, the world has never been the same, and we are still deliberating on things that we need to do to ensure that we are safe. People are dying, but in Ghana, well, you can say that generally we've known how to live with the virus. Some people do not even believe in the existence of COVID-19, and some say is one of the hosts. But whether we believe it or yes, it is happening. It is killing people. And as we speak, based on certain research, it suggests that this particular variant emerged in Southern Africa and has sparked a global alarm owing to its unprecedented set of genetic mutation. And that's quite technical. I'll try to get the expert to really help us understand. Dr. Moise, good evening. Welcome back.
Yeah, good evening. Sorry, the call dropped.
Yes. So I wanted to understand it because the South Africans or the government of South Africa is saying that is it a crime to know that there's a new variant? Because it's like the world is punishing them for their ability to know of a certain mutated virus. And it is not fair for the world to deal with them in such a manner. Rather than the world complimenting them, the world is rather punishing them. Are you in any position trying to sequence this particular variant for us to know the effect, whether it is dangerous or it is something that we can live with?
All right, so I'll just address the 2 things separately because they are really different. In the first place, as far as we know here in Ghana, the sequencing work which has been conducted by Professor Awandari and his team at the WACBIP in Accra suggests that we do not have any Omicron just yet. And this is samples that have been taken from travelers who tested positive on the antigen test upon entry into Ghana's airports. So this is in itself a limited sample. And as I said, we're not doing as much sequencing in Ghana as is going on, say, in South Africa and other places. We're definitely doing more than several other African countries. But because sometimes looking for these new variants, especially if they are not ubiquitous, is like searching for a needle in a haystack. The fact that you're not seeing anything yet doesn't mean it's not present. So what we know from Ghana right now is that we do not have any known Omicron variants. It would not surprise me at all if sooner than later we find this, not because I desire it, but because that's just the way the world works. The variants don't go away by wishing them away. The same thing happened with COVID itself coming to Ghana, and then the Delta variant, and then it will not be very different with Omicron. It's just the way the world works. Now, to the more substantive issue about South Africa, I'm totally with the South African authorities and with President Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa regarding the unfair treatment of South Africa by, not the world, let's say, but the Western world. The reason is now Omicron has been detected even in people who have no travel history from South Africa. The Western world, in order to make their lives easier, moved away from testing of all travelers entering into their country. In Ghana, we still maintain at least the antigen testing at the airport. They stopped it a while ago. And so the easy route is just to stop people coming into your country altogether. Now, as I say, it is like taking out a sledgehammer to kill an insect or some animal which you don't know what it is. It is this fear about what Omicron could be, in that it could be a faster spreading, more virulent strain that is causing them to take such, or make such strong reactions. Ideally, it should not call for a travel ban on South Africa. Rather, increase testing of people entering the country, and in particular those coming from South Africa. But it's also political in many ways, because a lot of these Western countries did not take the best of actions when COVID itself broke, and also when the Delta variant emerged. And so they're very eager to demonstrate to their citizens that, look, we're on top of this, we're taking the strongest action possible, even if it's not very necessary. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that South Africa has to bear the brunt of simply doing good science and being transparent with information. My fear is that it will lead to a lot less transparency from many countries if this is the kind of reaction that we're going to get from the global West.
All right. Doctor, thank you very much. We know that you're quite busy. We'll try to raise you back on the line at the appropriate time. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. Great.
So we have Kwame Sapon back on the line all the way from United Kingdom. Kwame, so Dr. Amwensi is also very optimistic that we'll be able to overcome. But this is where you talk about you taking your third shot. And myself, I've taken 2. And then there's a booster. But this Omicron, how, from your earlier studies, are we able to know the danger of this particular variant?
No, the simple answer is at the moment we don't. If you get any variant coming in, it will take about 3 weeks from first reporting for scientists to have a full understanding of how it's behaving. I don't know if you remember the Omega variant, what was then called the South African variant. It didn't last the light of day. We had a Brazilian variant. Then we had the Beta variant, which was the Kent variant or the UK variant, which dominated for a bit but didn't last the light of day. And then the Delta variant from India took over. Viruses are like human beings. They do what we call survival of the fittest. So the one that is able to spread quickly takes over. And when it takes over, its characteristics dominate the future direction of the disease. So in this case, the pandemic. It could be that this will be very, very transmissible, but its disease-causing potential, what we call the virulence, might be low. So even though it will spread very quickly, it will give very mild disease. We don't know. It could also be that it will spread quickly. It would have what I was saying when I got cut off, a high immune escape potential, which means that it would render the vaccines inactive. We don't know. But one thing we know about the vaccine is that if your antibody titers are high, irrespective of the mutation of the virus, and when I know I'm speaking to people who might not understand the technology. If you say your antibody titers are high, all I mean is when you take the vaccine, your body produces a defense. That's your ammunition against the virus.
Right.
If your ammunition is very high, you have a lot of bullets, irrespective of the changes that happen on the virus, because you are firing so many bullets, some of the bullets will hit the virus and they will die. You can look at it with a synonym of having a machine gun and having a hunting gun. You can fire one bullet, the machine gun can fire maybe 200. So if you are shooting at the same target, the machine gun most likely will kill, but the hunting gun will miss. That is why the booster has come in the UK. They want to have a machine gun. But for me, and for a lot of us who work in this area, our concern is why allow the virus to mutate? The only way you prevent the virus from mutating is to ensure that there's a wide scope of vaccination across the world. If you look at Ghana, for example, there's only about 6% of the population fully vaccinated. And because of the way this variant came about, like I said, in partially vaccinated people, in people with low immunity who had been fully vaccinated, and the likes, and people who had had wild exposure whose antibody titer had dropped, it is clear that if you give this virus an opportunity with low vaccine coverage, we'll get a lot more mutants. And when we get a lot more mutants, it will reverse any gains gained by the likes of the UK, the US, Germany, because it would have immune escape. So currently, the argument is supply countries who do not have enough vaccine with a lot more vaccine so that they can vaccinate their population. But for people in places like Ghana, even now, I am aware Ghana has a lot of vaccines, relatively. Not enough to vaccinate up to herd immunity, but they have enough vaccines. But people are not going to be vaccinated. For me, that is the biggest conversation. Because if we have vaccines and people are not going to take them, or they are going to take one dose and not going to take the second dose, then we are going to breed variants as well. So I see Omicron as a wake-up call to the world to tell us that the more mistakes you make, the more SARS-CoV-2 as a virus, I will punish you. And that is what I believe the conversation should be about.
That's interesting. So I'm reading something from the South African scientist, and they are saying that there are two main reasons why you scientists must be worried. One is the epidemiological and relates to the speed with which this variant first detected this month is spreading in South Africa. And they talk about the distinctive mutation pattern. But they say that this one, the PCR test can distinguish it from Delta and other variants that we know. And that the testing has also shown that it is responsible for more than 90% of infections in that part of the southern part of the country. At the same time, per your analysis in wastewater, they say that the infection has surged close to levels that last seen during the Delta wave 6 months ago. However, One director, Jeffrey Barrett, director of the COVID-19 Genetic Initiative at the Wellcome Sanger Institute, is saying that there's another cause for concern for this particular Omicron that we are talking about. The fact that this strain is an unprecedented sampling underline of mutation from 4 earlier variants. This sounds quite scary, isn't it?
It doesn't sound scary for me.
Okay.
You need to understand it. You see, you read a lot of things. So I'll take them bit by bit. What do viruses do? Viruses try to survive. They're like human beings. If you, as you are in Ghana now, I'm quite sure you are wearing a T-shirt because it's warm. If you were in the UK now at 0 degrees, you'd wear a winter jacket. If you went into the Arctic, where it's -10 now, you wear an Eskimo suit. That's all viruses do. They want to survive. The reason why you take a suit, an Eskimo suit and wear, a winter jacket and wear, is because you don't want to be frozen out and die from loss of temperature. The same thing happens with the virus. So the virus has gone through a number of mutations. And yes, it's true. 36 mutations have been identified from the original Wuhan strain, which is the one that came from China. 32 from the Delta strain. But do all these mutations make the virus dangerous? No. All the virus is doing is mutating to survive. So some of the mutations could just make the virus less dangerous. If that same document you are reading, because I've read it, it tells you that this Omicron doesn't give the loss of taste and smell. Am I wrong?
Yes, yeah, please.
It causes a lot more fatigue, but a lot less debilitating disease. Am I wrong? Those are the things I'm talking about. So if it doesn't cause lots of smell and taste, it means it's mutated itself away from causing that. Which means it is trying to avoid being detected, because we all know one of the symptoms is loss of taste and smell. So if you get it, you know you've got COVID. But if I can behave in such a way that you are not going to get that, then even if I infect you, you are not going to know you've got it. So that's one thing. It is not causing a lot of serious disease, but it's causing a lot more hospitalization. What does that mean? Because what you just read to me, it's telling us that it spreads quickly, which means what we call the reproductive number. What at the beginning of this pandemic, all of you guys were talking, R0. People, the reproductive number simply means if one person is infected, how many people can it potentially infect in close proximity, assuming no interventions were available? The Delta reproductive number is between 5 and 8. So if I walked into like Lab FM now, you have your air conditions on, no one is wearing a mask, no one is vaccinated. I came there, I'm infected. I could quickly infect 8 people. Those 8 people infect another, each of them will infect another 8 people each. So very soon there will be a major outbreak. And that is why I'm saying nothing has changed. Because even if the reproductive number changes and you put a barrier by wearing a mask, that reproductive number change means nothing. Because if that person breathes, the mask is going to block the virus from coming out of their breath. If you are wearing a mask, the little that would escape, your mask will block it as well. So for me, that is the important bit. Then, what you read talks about the whole concept of it dominating 90% of the population? Yes, it would. Because the reproductive number has changed and because it is more transmissible. But what would have been worrying if by changing the transmissibility and dominating by 90%, there had been a resultant increase in and 90% increase in hospitalization. If more people are getting infected, but few people are getting very unwell and getting into hospital, we are in quite a safe place. So when all these things are read, you need to look at it from the bigger epidemiological context and say, what is happening here? I can understand, we read 30 mutations compared with Delta 4. 90% domination is wiped out compared with how long did it take Delta to take over from the Omega and Beta. It's concerning. But the end result for us human beings is it making us very sick? Is it getting a lot of us hospitalized? Is it getting a lot of us critically ill? Is it getting a lot of us severely ill? And is it getting a lot of us to die? But if we would not know that in about 3 to 4 weeks, that was why I was telling you that a lot of these things we don't know. But if we have vaccines, let's get vaccinated so that we don't need to become guinea pigs to find answers to these questions.
All right.
And for me, that's the biggest thing.
Interesting. So I know that earlier you talked about UK is getting their third shot that is giving them booster. It has started. But in Ghana, we are targeting 20 million. As of now, we have many vaccines there, but people are not just taking the shot. We just have a little over 3.4 million who have taken their shot. How do we convince people that it is a necessity, especially in our part of the country where religion is still dominant and our thinking of vaccination to that of 666 and all those things is still prevalent? How do we convince people that it is safe to take it?
You see, thanks, Nana. Interesting question. If you remember when I remember speaking to you at the start of this pandemic when I was very critical of our risk communication strategy. And I got under a lot of attack. And I kept telling all of you that risk communication is a skill because you have to communicate to the person's hormones for the person to know the danger they are potentially going to experience. It's like walking in your farm and seeing a black cobra. You don't see it often, so when you see it, do you stand there to see, let me see if this cobra can bite or not, or you run? You run. Our risk communication from the start, the whole concept of spread calm, not fear, it's what has brought us here. And I've said it, and I'm quite sure you know that the Director of Public Health of Ghana Health Service, Ismail Dadaba, I've said it to his face. I've said it to my friend Patrick Abonti. I've said it to a lot of my colleagues, and I said that was the wrong strategy. Because in a country where belief is driven by religion and not science, the minute you make people comfortable, they start questioning the narrative. Because the average Ghanaian goes by this thing. Because if car the speed, if it takes junction, but it will be top high, then you break a tire. If you can't just say you and run away. So if people are telling you to relax, because they can't create a mountain, who wants a car now? That is where we find ourselves now. So we need to change our risk communication, especially with this Omicron now. Because like I said, it could be true the data we are getting from South Africa. It could be true that it's mutated itself to the point that it's less virulent. Its disease potential has decreased, even though it spreads a lot more. But what if it hasn't? What even if it has? But for people who are with comorbid states, you've got diabetes, hypertension, cancer, and all those things, it can be very debilitating for you. Don't we need to let them know? And that is why the vaccinations are important. Because maybe, Nana, you sitting there, me sitting here, we don't have any diabetes, hypertension, cancer, fortunately. So we say we are not going to get vaccinated. You get infected. You know that about 70% of all people who get infected are asymptomatic anyway. But we go and visit our uncle who's got renal failure because his kidneys are not working. We go and infect him and he dies. How would that register on our conscience? Knowing that we were the ones who were positive and infected him. And this is the sort of risk communication I am talking about. We need to bring this thing to the normal level of our day-to-day activity. How we relate. Because if your uncle has renal failure, it doesn't mean he's going to die tomorrow. It doesn't mean you are not going to go and visit him. But if you are reckless, you don't wear your mask. You are always going into crowded places. You don't wash your hands. You don't social distance. You don't test, so you don't know you are infected. And you go and visit him, and you take those same behaviors, and you go and infect him. How does that sit with your conscience?
All right. So do we incentivize people? Because if I may be wrong, but I understand in the United Kingdom, there might be incentive, or is there no incentive? We want to understand why people would troop in to go and take their shot, but perhaps do you think we need to be strategic to get people to do that, to save all and sundry?
You see, I normally don't want to compare a country like the UK to Ghana. And I do that for obvious reasons. Having worked in both countries and had almost 90% of my professional practice in the UK, though I practice in Ghana as well, and I'm in and out of it. The amount of money the UK has invested in vaccines, the amount of vaccine candidates the UK backed that have become vaccines that are registered. Ghana doesn't have the wherewithal to do that. And yes, UK is incentivizing. But UK is also using what we call the carrot and stick approach. So there are these vaccine passports. If you want to go and watch a football match, you should be able to show that you are doubly vaccinated, and soon it will be triply vaccinated. And tested negative from from antigen, because you can just walk to your pharmacy and go and pick up a test and self-administer. And you have to register it on the NHS website. And it has to appear on your NHS app. When you are buying your ticket, you've got to prove that you are doubly vaccinated and having that. So that answers your question about the stadium, because I got cut off, so I couldn't explain why you see all those things. The people are there because they've had to jump hoops, not because they just want to buy a ticket. Because I'm quite sure you've been to the UK, you know that tickets are not just sold. You buy it online with your credit card or your debit card, and it's a digitalized system. So you've got to put all these details in, and they can be cross-checked because your NHS app can be checked. And then when everything goes through, you buy your ticket. So if I'm standing next to you and I know you've had 3 shots, and you just tested negative within 3 days of coming to the football match. And most people do it because the antigen test is 30 minutes. They do it on the day. So I know the people I'm in there with have all tested negative. They've all been vaccinated. I am not scared. But even now, with all those safeguards in place, like you rightly said, the UK has now changed the law because of the risk of higher transmissibility with Omicron and the fact that it might have immune escape to say whether you are 100 vaccinated or not, wear a face mask. So why can't we have the same risk communication if we cannot afford to incentivize? Because the point is, how much incentive are you going to give to people? If you say you are going to give 100 cedis incentive to go and have the jab, that's 2 jabs, right? On average, apart from Johnson & Johnson. That's 200 cedis per person. You want to vaccinate 20 million people. 200 times 20 million. Do we have that money in our budget to spare? So sometimes when we ask these questions, we need to do the mathematics. And that is why I normally talk from a public health standpoint, and I try to be as bare as possible. And I'll challenge, whether it's government, whether it's the media, I'll challenge you and say, this is what you're telling me. But I am a very practical person, and I'll tell you, this is what you are saying means. Do we have that money? And do we have that money? Even if we said we're going to give 50 cedis a shot, that's 100 cedis. 100 times 20 million. How much is that? 2 billion? Do we have that money sitting there?
All right.
So can we go down the incentivization route? No. So for me, we need to be practical. And that is why I say the issues about risk communication. We need to up our risk communication and bring the thing to the level of people. Yes, Nahrawa Nehano, and I'm a brave one Nehano. Wouldn't say what is what is. Set Ukoya, Neb stands only in Marasso. Ne sans a one sign interest in Winnaby. Ukona the Kosani no Cababia. Now who say Yari and a born no Cababia. Utimu Betno. That's the sort of risk communication I'm looking at. So you put the onus on the person. Now that you maybe someone say, yeah, yes, sir.
Interesting. Kwame, we are grateful for your time.
I'm always grateful, and thanks so much for having me as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, let me speak to the GMA President, Ghana Medical Association President, Dr. Frank Srebo. Doc, congratulations once again.
Nana, thank you very much.
And I'm sure you are aware.
You are speaking parables this evening. I understand.
Doc, so there's a new variant that is scaring us. I mean, even the COVID-19, we are still trying to find a way to overcome it. And then there's a new wave, Omicron. So far, how would you assess our fight against COVID-19 and now the new variant? What is GMA's position?
No, good evening, and good evening to everyone listening to us. And I'm sure some are watching us on other social media platforms. I don't think that anything has changed. I mean, we all knew that as long as the virus stays with us, continue to multiply, definitely there will be mutations that would occur. And if you look at this virus, clearly its nature has been such that every now and then new variants come up. And so the variant that we started with, or the original virus that we started with, a lot of other variants have come until, I'm sure even now we still have the Delta variant as a dominant strain. And now we are hearing that Omicron is also coming on board. The only challenge that exists is that Omicron appears to be more, has the ability to spread faster than the Delta. And so that is a major concern that we have at the moment. And so if you realize that it has become a strain or a variant that is of concern to the WHO because of its potential to spread quickly compared to Delta variants.
Now, government is declaring from tomorrow, that's throughout the month of December, as vaccination month. Because of the Christmas festivities, people will be mingling. And we have discussed this before because during the Christmas mood, we knew what happened around 2020 and aftermath. How do we encourage people to take the shot? Because I'm sure that's the concern. I asked Kwame the same thing. I still, monitor some religious leaders having doubt about this shot and the fact that they are linking these vaccinations to that of 666 and the likes. We have the vaccines available, but for people to take the shot is still a challenge. From GMA point of view, what can be done to avoid it being expired and also ensuring that the people who are willing to take the shot are safe?
I think that Ghana Health Service, at least on Sunday, informed of some measures that they are taking to ensure that at least the vaccines are made available to people for them to be able to take their shots. I think one of the key things is to do with the location of the vaccines. And once we are able to make the vaccines available close to where people live and where they work, it is most likely that they would be amenable to taking it, because some people may not walk into the health facility just because they want to take the vaccine. But once the vaccine is available at the lorry parks, available at where they work, it is most likely they will take it. I still believe that we need to still intensify our educational efforts on the vaccine and the need for people to take it. We have relaxed a little bit, especially so because our numbers are quite low at this moment. We are hovering less than 700 cases in the country. There are even weeks that we don't report new cases. And so it tells you that the enthusiasm with which we all started fighting this virus has gone down. But the most important thing is that we can't let our guard now, because like you indicated, once we move into this festive seasons and people are going to interact, there is going to be a lot of activities that bring people together, and the potential for spread is going to be very high. That will mean that it's likely that by the time we come out of the Christmas festivities, we may have spikes happening in the country. So this is when it becomes important for us to ensure that people take the vaccines. You realize that Ghana Health has indicated that they are going to ensure that for people who go to certain places, they will be mandated to show the fact that they have vaccinated before they are allowed into those spaces. For the public sector workers, especially those of us in the health sector, I think it will become mandatory that all of us get vaccinated before we are allowed to work in the facilities that we work. And so I think some of these measures will also push people to go and take the vaccines. But I believe that what is important is the education. We need to actually convince people. We need to tell them the importance of taking the vaccines, and also let them know the advantages of actually taking the vaccine. So that at the end of the day, once we do that, it becomes easy for people to accept it and also even advise their kids to take them. Because if there is a parent who doesn't want to take this vaccine or is not convinced, there is no way this parent will sanction that you can go to the school and give the vaccine to the child. So it's important that we get everybody on board and then we educate people and let them understand that this has got nothing to do with 666. Some of us have taken the vaccine. If the opportunity comes for us to even take booster doses, we will take it. We have not had any ill effects since we took the vaccine. We have not become devils or whatever since we took the vaccine. So I think that it's important for us to educate people and let them understand the importance of taking the vaccine. Because once you take the vaccine, you are more or less protected, so that one, it's likely that your rate at which you catch the infection goes down. Secondly, even if you catch it, the severity of your disease goes down. So these are things that we need to hammer on for people to understand that we need to break transmission by taking the vaccines. Unfortunately, there was a time that the vaccine was at a premium. It wasn't available. People were clamoring for it. Now some of the vaccines are available, and we are having vaccine hesitancy where people are reluctant to go and take the vaccines. But I'm sure it's all because the education has not gone down very well.
That's interesting. Finally, so the idea of no vaccine, no allowance of certain activities, is it something that should be done forcefully or through proper negotiation?
I think we can look at it as a two-pronged attack. And for me, the first thing is to be able to do negotiations, let people understand the need for them to take the vaccines, try and appeal to their conscience and their minds so that they know that it's important we take it. Because when it becomes an issue of force, I mean, people can decide, okay, I don't want to go to a nightclub. I don't want to go to the sports stadium. I won't go to any restaurant to go and buy any food or sit there and eat. So I won't take the vaccine. That person becomes a risk to all of us. So I think that it's important that we begin by appealing to people and educating people so that we negotiate our way out and let people understand that it's a good thing to take the vaccine. And then let's see how acceptable it is. But of course, at a certain point in time, you may need to put in certain barriers to also ensure that people are more or less coerced to also take the vaccine. And so you may say that we have to mix the two, but I am sure beginning, if we negotiate, that will be better than forcing our way through, because it's always not been the best route when you want to force people to do things against their will.
All right. Dr. Frank Srebo, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Nana.
He's the president of the Ghana Medical Association, and that's interesting. So we have been talking about Omicron. That's the new strain of virus that causes COVID-19, and that has been labeled by the World Health Organization. And this particular variant or virus had been classified as variant of concern. And per the definition, when we say a variant is of concern, they define it as evidence of an increase in transmissibility. It's able to transmit faster, more severe disease. That is, it is capable of increasing hospitalization or death, significant reduction of neutralization of antibodies, meaning that the antibodies that will fight any external or foreign material in your body, it is capable of reducing the strength and also reduce effectiveness of treatment of vaccine or diagnostic detection failures. So when we say a particular virus is a variant of concern, it means it is dangerous, and we need to be very careful. Want to play one or two editorial from Irene, and then we wrap up.
The outbreak of COVID-19 and the quest to find its cure through studies has led to scientists and experts discovering other variants of the virus. Now, the most recent and dangerous variant, according to the World Health Organization, that has been discovered recently is the Omicron variant. Experts in South Africa first reported the Omicron variant to the WHO on November 24, 2021, and that was after the COVID-19 infection suddenly began to go up. The WHO grouped Omicron as a variant of concern. Now, this category means that the variant might have a higher transmissibility and also a higher resistance to vaccines. So far, apart from its first detection in some samples from South Africa, there has been some cases recorded in Botswana, the UK, Portugal, Australia, Netherlands, Italy, and some other countries, which indicates that the new variant is indeed fast spreading. Although Ghana has not recorded any case of the Omicron variant so far, that's according to the Ghana Health Service, I believe as a country we need to be a step ahead of the virus. This is because the new variant comes as a threat to not just Ghana but Africa as a continent. Now, international bans are being imposed on some countries in the continent. The UK, US, Thailand, and some countries have imposed restrictions on African countries such as South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, and Eswatini. And so, should there be any case recorded in Ghana, we might suffer a ban, and that would affect us economically too. Now, Ghana has been one of the countries with the lowest vaccination rates, and one factor is because most citizens are hesitant towards the vaccine, which means we are at a higher risk in terms of our health and also in terms of suffering international restrictions. And so tonight, I would urge all Ghanaians to get vaccinated and still practice the safety COVID-19 protocols.
Thank you very much. Irene, for that powerful editorial. So it is a wrap. Tonight, we will not activate the lines because we wanted more of education. So you'll be guided and you'll be ensuring that, yes, COVID-19 is real. There's a new variant. We need to be concerned because this particular one is a variant of concern, meaning that it can kill. It can send you to the hospital. So if you have not taken your shot, please take advantage and go and take yours. I've taken mine, and I urge you to take yours. Okay, I'll urge religious leaders to also get their members to take the shot because it is for our own good. Okay? Thank you very much. Remember, the hook is up next. My name is Nana Jantuah. It's been a pleasure always serving you. Tomorrow, David Akwete comes your way with, as usual, Love in the Morning. Good evening.